daily draws are back. Itching to read this one. It's not there to be nice to you, grungy and gloomy. I'll just keep reading books. Hello everybody, welcome or welcome back to Tarot Magpie. I hope you're doing all kinds of good today. This is going to be the decks on my desk for January video. So this is a stack of tarot and oracle decks that I'm going to be working with, as well as a big old pile of books that I am going to be reading through, or that I intend to read through in January. As always, none of this is set in stone. I'm not restricting myself from using the rest of my collection. I'm not limiting myself to these decks if I don't feel like using them. They are just what I have brought to the front of my stash, as it were, to remind me to use them a little bit. So I'm going to jump straight in. I'm going to start with decks and then get into books. I'm going to start with my daily draw because the daily draws are back. Capricorn season, I am working with the Next World Tarot. This is the pocket edition. These daily draws were kind of on hold for a little bit while I was doing Drop In 78 with the Thoth Tarot, but that is almost over as I'm filming this, and I'm really excited to be getting back into my daily pulls with a deck of choice, and for Capricorn season it is the Next World Tarot. I got this quite a few months ago. I think I got it back in the spring, but I haven't really reached for it much because I felt like it needed a little bit of a deck study or a mini study, which is kind of what these monthly choices end up being. It's not a full in-depth deck study. It's more a chance to get to know the guidebook, get to know the deck. And I think that I'm really going to get on with it. I'm a few days in, as you can see. I'm really enjoying the guidebook so far. It's just not a quick and easy breezy reader. It is intentionally quite radical and quite confronting, I think. I really want to read this with the guidebook. I know when I first got it, I did, the odd card pull, and I thought, okay, this is one that I need to spend some time with. It's not just another Rider-Waite-Smith clone, so I'm excited to be giving it that time in Capricorn season, which obviously extends through to late January, and I'm really excited to see where I go with this. So that is the Next World Tarot. Next up, I'm pulling out my on-the-go deck. This is going to be the deck I sling in a bag to carry around with me, and this is the Russian Tarot of St. Petersburg, which is are you a US Games? Yeah, it's a US Games deck, and it just feels so wintry. It feels so cozy. It is a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, so it is going to be an easy read for if I decide I want to pull cards while I'm out and about at a cafe or whatever, if I want to pull some cards for my partner, that sort of thing. It's not one that I need a guidebook for. It's one that I can read quite easily, which is exactly what I look for in this kind of everyday carry tarot. I know that was a tag that went around. I also did a response to it, and this is kind of that for me for the month of January. I also do think it's absolutely beautiful. I believe these were painted to scale, so they were painted this size with this level of detail, which I think is incredible. So not too much to say about that one. I've been really loving using Rider-Waite-Smith clones for my everyday carry tarot for the last few months. I used a few different tarot collectibles decks, and I'm looking forward to pulling this one out. All right, next up, the Influence of the Angels Tarot, and then everything else is kind of in little mini groupings. Got a couple of pairs. As you will see when I pull out the rest of my decks, this is the most straightforward Rider-Waite-Smith deck, except for the St. Petersburg. The reason that I pulled this out in the end was I just felt like the stack needed it. I felt like it needed a easy read. I really love the guidebook for this one, which is something that the Russian Tarot of St. Petersburg is missing. It's just a little white book, whereas the guidebook for this is really good. It features a little picture, the symbols in the card, and what they represent, how they impact the meaning of the card, direct meaning, shadow meaning, and a little angelic message for each card as well. So the guidebook is really solid. I stand by this being a really good beginner deck, at least in my opinion. I don't know, maybe you'll agree with me when we get to the rest of the decks, but the stack felt like it needed something a little bit straightforward, and this visually felt like it matched the vibe of everything else I have going on in January. So let us get into it. Right, first up, I'm going to pull out the Nicoletta Ceccoli Tarot. I spoke about this recently in my neglected decks video that I did, I have not pulled this out for a reading since I bought it, and I think I bought it over the summer. And I was saying in that video that the color palette looks kind of gloomy and wintry, and so maybe this would be a good January deck. And I decided to follow through with that, and everything else was kind of chosen around this deck. This one is a little bit surreal. It's a little bit gloomy. Like, this is the sun card, but it's got this like grungy, gloomy sky. Like, it looks like a wintry sky, a little bit sinister. That Seven of Swords feels a little bit creepy. It's weird. It's an odd one, and I know I'm not the first to say that. I absolutely love this Four of Pentacles. I think that's so cool. Pretty sure this is a curated art deck. The tarot deck was pulled from her existing artwork. She didn't create the artwork for this deck, and that's always interesting, and is one of the reasons why this hasn't been a deck I've really reached for, because the tone is interesting. It's not always what I want. I don't always want this kind of gloomy, grungy, surreal thing, although I frequently do. But also the Little White Book is extremely Little White Book. It does not speak to the images at all in the specifics. It's just not been an easy deck to pick up and read because I need to think a little bit harder, which, you know, I don't always want to do. I am really looking forward to using this in January, particularly with the decks I've decided to pair it with. The Urban Crow Oracle is what I reached for to pair with the Nicoletta Ceccoli. I was dithering about this. My patrons have seen a kind of behind the scenes deciding what I'm going to work with in January, and I was really dithering with a few different MJ Cullinane decks, but in the end I thought these would play interestingly together. They're going to be definitely a bit of a gloomy read. The Urban Crow Oracle, visually, first of all, stunning. It's kind of grungy. It's got a lot of the same tones in the colors, but the Urban Crow Oracle is not a fluffy, happy, shiny oracle deck. It has got some more confronting keywords, like right here with upheaval between the Tower and the Chariot, which is a choice, you know, upheaval right next to the Tower. Like, come on, they're talking to each other. Waterproof, which I think is such a cool card, with the World and is this the King or the Queen of Pentacles? I'm not sure. I need to check what the symbol is. I think it might be the King. I feel like these are going to be really interesting, and I feel like the Nicoletta Ceccoli is not a traditional tarot deck. It's not like most other things in my collection, so I need to come at it from a bit of a different angle, and I think the Urban Crow Oracle is going to help me do that. So I'm really looking forward to working with these two together. Scavenge with the Ten of Swords. The Ten of Swords with, like, this is just such an interesting image. It's kind of twisty, dark fairy tale vibes. And so I wonder how it would pair with something like the Darkwood Tarot, which is also kind of twisty, dark fairy tale. And I think the color palette would also work really well with that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to pairing these up. I think that's going to be really interesting. Another deck I pulled out that was kind of inspired by the Nicoletta Ceccoli is a Hush Tarot, which is a tarot deck. It's another curated artwork deck, I believe. I don't think it was curated for this tarot deck, but now I'm doubting myself. Oh, maybe it was created as a tarot deck. Okay, I think I stand corrected. I think Jeremy Hush did design this as a tarot deck. My mistake. But it's another kind of strange one, and I think the color palette works really well with the Nicoletta Ceccoli, but I didn't want to read with them together. I thought I'm not comfortable with either of them. By comfortable, I mean neither of them are easy reads for me. Neither of them are kind of grab and go decks. They all need a little bit more thought to get where they're going. I think this is so cool. I do love the images in this. I love this slightly macabre side to this deck. I think that's really cool. I think the illustrations are gorgeous. It also feels kind of January, like everything's a little bit decaying and grungy looking, and that's for me, that is January. Like, December is, we're looking forward to the solstice, we're looking forward to the new year, everything's kind of pretty and sparkly because everyone is celebrating Christmas. January is just like cold and gloomy, and yes, it's getting lighter, thank God. We've passed the solstice now, so the light is slowly going to be coming back, but it's not. January is very rarely fun and exciting. Everyone is broke after all the celebrations in December. Like, it's just a bit of a slog. And visually, this feels quite January. Like, everything's a little bit decayed and grey and grungy. So that is the Hush Tarot. And I've pulled out two oracle decks that I want to pair and see how I get on. So first up is Woodland Wardens, which I also pulled out primarily for color palette reasons when I decided I was going to work with the Nicoletta Ceccoli. But again, I decided I wanted to work with the Hush Tarot rather than it didn't seem to make any sense with the Nicoletta Ceccoli just when I pulled them side by side. So let's do so this didn't seem to make any sense with the Nicoletta Ceccoli when I pulled them side by side, but I think you'll agree it just makes so much sense next to the Hush Tarot. The color palettes, the themes, they're both quite animal heavy. Well, the Woodland Wardens is just plants and animals, and that is a lot of what shows up. We've got 2 owls. A lot of what shows up in the Hush Tarot, and they just make so much sense. And I think the Woodland Wardens feels like what I think of as quite a traditional oracle deck. Traditional to what, you might ask? I don't know, just whatever is imprinted in my mind as what an oracle deck is. It's a picture, it's a title, it's a keyword. It's very like standard issue oracle deck kind of format. And so I think having this with the Hush, which is so not a standard issue tarot deck, might be a little bit grounding in the reading, might make it a little bit easier to read the Hush Tarot. Like, they just look so good together. I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this. But like, even where we've got these blues, they're very similar, like slaty blues, lots of brown and like earthy tones, like this olivey dirty green with the yellowy browns here. I just think it makes a lot of sense. Leadership with the Star and the Knight of Wands. Leadership with the Star I love because the Star is like the thing you navigate by. So it's not the leader, but it's like the North Star. And then the Knight of Wands. I think the Knight of Wands wants to be a leader. They're maybe a bit too reckless still, but that's what they want to be doing. We've got a horse with a chariot. I love it. So that is my first deck pairing with the Hush. And then I've also grabbed for the Citadel, which is an interesting choice, if I do say so myself. I don't really know what made me reach for it, but I decided I wanted to. I just think it could be interesting. They don't visually make nearly as much sense as with the Woodland Wardens, which was really cohesive. This is quite starkly different, but it's a really good oracle deck. It's an archetypes kind of oracle deck, and so it just works really well with almost everything. You can't see the gorgeous foiling on it with the way my lights are set up, but it's there, trust me. So even though they don't look like the most visually stunning pairing, I think it's going to be interesting to read with. And I think because the Citadel Oracle is such a good oracle deck to read with, because like I say, it is all archetypes, I think again it will be a little bit of a almost like grounding kind of deck within the world of the Hush Tarot. So we shall see. We've got the Scholar, Investigation and Research with the 8 of Cups and the 2 of Swords. The 2 of Swords as like investigation and research, I can totally see as an interpretation because it's like that analysis paralysis. And then the 8 of Cups, which is usually about walking away, but it's like a thought through decision. So maybe that's where the Scholar comes in. You're not running away, you are putting everything down and you're deciding to move on, which is different. So it's going to be interesting. And then let's just look at everybody all together. We've got 2 oracles and a tarot. I don't know if I will read them like this. That is how they're looking. And these are the 2 oracle decks that I intend to pair with the Hush Tarot. The Priest, Perseverance, Faith with Happiness, and the Ace of Wands. I quite like that. I feel like that's kind of good vibes. All right, and then the final pairing is the Herbal Astrology Oracle with the Guardian of the Night. So it was the Herbal Astrology that I pulled first when I was looking at the Nicoletta Ceccoli, and then I pulled a bunch of decks. And I reached for this. And I think it was probably largely for colour palette reasons because, again, it's kind of grungy. It's these like slaty grey blues with lots of earthy tones. And this is an oracle deck that I really like using. And I was playing with a few pairs, and then I thought, hey, I think I'd really like it with the Guardian of the Night. I had like 3 different oracle deck. Sorry, I had like 3 different MJ Cullinane contenders on my desk at one point before I narrowed them down a little bit. But I just think these would be really nice together. The Guardian of the Night is such a good deck. I know it so well. First of all, look at them. They look so good together. But I know the Guardian of the Night so well, and the Guardian of the Night is it's a more gentle isn't quite the word, but I feel like it holds me in a reading, which is a bit of a counterpoint to the Nicoletta Ceccoli and the Urban Crow, which are both a bit more intense. That Hush Tarot is also a little bit more macabre. And even the Next World Tarot for my daily draw, this has this quite like revolution kind of theming to it. It's not a kind deck. It's not there to be nice to you. I wouldn't say the Guardian of the Night is just there to be nice to you, but it is nice. It tells you what you need to hear, but it does it in a way that doesn't like attack you. And so I thought this would be like a nice counterpoint along with the herbal astrology, which also feels kind of supportive. So that's that pairing. I actually think they look totally stunning together. And also, I've not really read with the Guardian of the Night in a long time. It feels like it sits next to my bed and I pull it out when I do want to do card readings. But to be honest, since I moved in with my partner and I'm not going to bed by myself, I'm just reaching for it less because we're just more likely to chat until we fall asleep. So I feel like it's been just a little bit neglected considering how much I love it. So that is the final deck pairing. And having seen all that, I hope it makes sense why I wanted another kind of straightforward Rider-Waite-Smith in the mix, because this is going to live in my bag. I'm not really going to reach for this when I'm at my desk. This one's going to live on my desk. And visually, it also goes, like the vibes for January are a little bit like grungy and gloomy. Like this is a nighttime deck. Everything else has got those like earthy, grungy colours. They all fit and I feel like I've covered my bases. Like I'm exploring some new stuff with the Nicoletta Ceccoli and this might be a bit of a hard hitter of a pairing. This is just me having some fun over here with the Hush Tarot and a couple of oracles. And then this is a little bit more sort of when I need a stabilizing, grounding kind of reading. I think this pairing is really going to fit the bill for that. So let's chat books quickly before I wrap this up. So mostly I'm treating January as a month to wrap up all the books that I have in progress and kind of shrink my currently reading shelf on Storygraph, which is feeling a little bit excessive at this point. So I'm going to not linger too long on any of these. I do have a couple of new books to add in, which I will get to, but let's rapid fire these. So Self by Barry Dainton. You've seen this on the channel. This is a psychology philosophy book. You can see I've been reading it. I am here, page 91. I've not touched this in months. Whenever I had this on my like list, I think it was maybe September that I was reading this. But this was really fascinating and I want to continue. I had some really cool ideas about what is the self. Is it the body? Is it the soul? Is it if you teleported and broke yourself down into atoms and reformed yourself in a different place, would that still be the same you? Like, it's just really interesting. So that is Self by Barry Dainton. Next up, In a Flight of Starlings, which is on my desk this December. I have cracked this open and frankly, that's about it. So I'm going to finish it in January. I might finish it before the end of December. Who knows? I'm filming this a little bit earlier than usual because we're here and there and everywhere between Christmas and New Year, which is when I usually film these. But this is like less than 130 pages. The actual writing is 120 pages and then there's some sources. So this is short and sweet. It's about systems. It's about systems in nature and I think how they are sort of paralleled in physics, which is right up my street. I don't understand physics. I don't have the brain for it, but I think it's fascinating while I'm reading it and I understand it while I'm reading it. It doesn't stay in my brain for me to like explain to you 2 weeks later, but that's okay. I'll just keep reading books. I'm not mad about it. I just had to run and fetch this from the other room because it is the book I am currently reading. This is A Beautiful Question by Frank Wilczek. You can see I've been reading, I've been tabbing up the sort of glossary at the end as well for when I take my notes. This is such a cool book. I will talk a little bit more in the December wrap up when I get to that. Probably like in a week or so you'll see that and I will have read more by the time I get around to filming that. This is so cool. It talks about so many different things. It's basically asking, is the world a work of art? Is nature beautiful? It's talking about like Pythagoras and Plato and all sorts of different philosophers and scientists who were more interested in beauty of their theories than how accurately they maybe reflected the truth of the science. It's really cool. It's really interesting. I'm not going to finish this month. I'm up to 122 and it's like I think it's about 300 pages, and then there's all the notes and stuff at the back. So I'm not going to finish this month, but I am going to try and finish it in January. It's so cool. It's full of such cool ideas. I have been reading this since summer 2023. It's getting kind of embarrassing. This is Helgoland by Carlo Rovelli, which is a history of physicists and the history of the discipline as much as it is about like theories and equations and things. Yeah, the story of quantum physics and its bright young founders. And where am I up to? What does that even say? Who even knows? Not me. Okay, I'm up to here. I'm looking at Entanglement on page 81. It's also not a very long book. Carlo Rovelli is an absolute joy to read every single time. A shout out also to his translators, Erica Segre and Simon Carnell, because they do a fantastic job translating his work. But this I'm determined to finish in 2025 because I started it in 2023. So that is a physics book on the list. And then the final book I want to kind of mop up and finish and take off my currently reading list is Star Codes by Heather Rowan Robbins. This is an astrology book. I have sort of flicked through this to look at my own placements, but I do want to read it cover to cover because there's some stuff in here about, especially towards the end, about like transits and progressions and the overview of a chart, as well as like here there's this stuff with like the quadrants, which is kind of related to houses, but like the quadrants and also these patterns of planets in your chart, which is stuff that I'm less familiar with. This is basically an astrology 101 book. It's a really good one in my opinion. I'm not an expert, but I've really been enjoying this and I want to read it through before the end of January. And then I could just keep it as a reference book, obviously, to when I want to look up different planets and signs and placements and things. So that is my currently reading stack that I want to take off my currently reading list by the end of the month. But I do have some new books to stick on there as well. So The Neuroscience of Tarot, I am so excited to read this book. It is not a huge one, but I'm going to be reading this over the course of 2 months with my book club over on Patreon. If you join at the Fledglings tier, you can join us in reading this. And it looks like, anyway, I've only flipped through it so far, but it looks like it gets really sciencey in the science. And then it's also full of loads of like exercises and journal exercises and tarot exercises to do the intuition, emotion thing and interpretation. So it does look like it's a really good blend of sciencey science and more like woo-woo stuff. It doesn't seem like it has, for lack of a better term, it doesn't feel like it's dumbed down the science to appeal to the tarot audience, and it doesn't feel like it's been too skeptical about the like tarot intuition prediction side of things. For the people who are more sciencey, typically it really does seem like it's done both, and I'm so excited to read it. Itching to read this one. And then this is the other new book on my stack for January. This is New Moon Magic by Reza Dickens and Amy Torok. This was a Imogen over at Sapling Tarot made me do it. They don't know that they made me do it, but I've been intrigued by this, and then they've mentioned it a couple of times and said good things about it, and I trust them. So into my cart, into my hands it came. And I obviously am not going to read this super quickly. I'm going to read this throughout the year with the new moons. So we will have a new moon in Pisces, right? Aquarius. I know what's happening. The new moon in Aquarius will be the first new moon of January. It's like a little essay for each new moon, sort of inspired by the sign and the astrology. And then you do get like a little, like a meditation or a ritual as well, which I will maybe do, maybe not. But mainly I bought this for the essays. 13 anti-capitalist tools for resistance and re-enchantment. I am loving this, I guess, trend of anti-capitalist, anti-colonialist, like radical books in the realm of like tarot and witchcraft and this like new moon magic. I think it's so cool and I really love to see it. And I'm really excited to kind of keep reading these kind of books as they're coming out because I think it's very much needed. It's important. and there is no reason that we shouldn't be blending these kind of causes and things that we care about with like our spiritual practice. And with that, that's all my plans for January. That is all my tarot plans and reading plans for January. Once again, I'm not holding myself to these too strictly. I really would like to get my book stack down. Hopefully I will have some good news to share with you in February once the month is over and I'm giving you my wrap up. But that is it from me for now. So I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for watching and for spending some time with me. If you made it this far, I really hope you have enjoyed it. Let me know what you're reading with in January, what books you're reading. Join me over on Patreon if you want to see more from me. Like I say, I do tend to share the kind of decision-making process of these most months. The link for that is in the description, along with a link to my Etsy store for my tarot spread mini zines and my readings if you're interested. And that's it from me. Give me a like if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.